Yep. And welcome back to Talking Knicks, the best week in Knicks history. I don't know if I would say that, but the Knicks do win 3 out of 4 this week, almost 4 out of 4, close loss against Portland. They look great. Some of the young guys don't play. Some of the guys we wrote off played really well. I don't know. Let's talk Knicks. Bum, 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 bum. Welcome back to Talking Knicks. And fellas, I'm going to start off with this. Let's have fun because there's not going to be a lot of Knicks weeks like this season. I am joined today by Sir Gregory Poon and Thomas J. Piccolo. Gregory, how are you doing? And happy Thanksgiving. How was it?
Thanksgiving was good. I had a nice little time with my family. We enjoyed ourselves, but I'm doing well because of the Knicks, baby. 3 wins in a row. Go Knicks.
I love that. Thomas, can you one up that?
I don't know if I can top that energy, but Thanksgiving was awesome, man. Visited my folks in Pennsylvania, saw my brothers, saw my extended family. It was a beautiful thing. Had family coming up from Alabama, all sorts of places in the South. So people I don't get to see a lot. It was very nice, and New York was really balling out this week. So I'm excited to talk about it. Like you said, I don't know how much of this we're gonna get this season. So let's enjoy it while we can.
Yeah, and capitalize by tonight's game. And quick shout out to the NBA. People are wondering why it's the most popular or the most growing league right now. The Knicks Grizzlies game was a fantastic game that if you're a basketball fan and you watch this game, how could you not have fun? Let's circle back to the start of the week though. Greggy, we play Portland at home and we're on a losing streak. I think we wanted to get this one. We end up coming short. The Blazers are a good team. They were leading the West this week. I don't know. Tim Hardaway Jr. has a game. Trey Burke plays solid. His resurgence, we'll talk about that. Blazers shoot 45% from 3. What do you have on this game, Greg?
The Knicks were up 10 in the third quarter, so you were like, all right, this is good. But, I mean, you never really felt confident that they were going to pull it out. I know Tom's brother lives with me. He went to bed because he goes to bed at like 9 o'clock. And I was like, they were winning by 10. I was like, hey, who do you think's going to win the game? And he was like, honestly, the Blazers. And I was like, yeah, I agree. And then they did it because the Knicks can't really – we didn't think they could close to start the week. They were a team that couldn't play in the fourth quarter, and they kind of showed that again in the Celtics game, but they held on there. But in the Blazers game, they were who we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were. Tom, any news and notes from this game?
C.J. McCollum was really tough to stop. I mean, both of the Blazers' backcourt were tough guards. So, I mean, you don't really expect guys like Trey Burke to match up too well and Tim Hardaway Jr. defensively to match up too well against those two guys. That's why I think we were hoping to see some Damian Dotson minutes. I know we're going to get to him, I'm sure, throughout the podcast, but he got what I think was his first of 4 DNP coaches' decisions. I would have liked to see him D'ing up either McCollum or Lillard, but they were just too much for the Knicks to handle down the stretch.
Yeah, and Tom, you touched on Damian Dotson. We're going to talk about him a lot more in a little bit, and maybe another thing to circle for later is Mario Hezonja, 2 points in 17 minutes. We'll see if it all comes together. But
hey, while we're circling things, there was a kind of the biggest play of the game was something I want to touch on maybe a little later, but it was the last bucket made by the Trailblazers. Do you guys remember what they did to go up by 2 possessions in the last minute of the game?
I'm a mental fart right now, Tom.
Yeah, there were so many games this week, but Evan Turner grabbed a Damian Lillard miss and put it up for 2. That kind of put the game out of reach. Otherwise, like if they would have secured that rebound, they would have had the ball with like 30 seconds left, down by 2. So it was an offensive rebound by the Trailblazers, and that was something that was happening a lot, not only this past week, but all season so far. The Knicks have had a really hard time securing defensive rebounds. I wrote about it a little bit this weekend, and we'll talk more about that later. But that's just something to circle.
Yeah, Portland grabs 14 offensive boards that game, 4 more than the Knicks. But, and I'm going to start my crescendo to what goes on the rest of the week, because this was kind of the first good basketball game we see the Knicks play in a little while. We give up 131 to Orlando. We did have a close-ish game, but lose to the Pelicans. And the game before that, trounced by Oklahoma City, trounced by Orlando again. So this was kind of good to see that they were playing ball. And then back-to-back, Thanksgiving Eve, we go into Boston and we win 117 to 109 over the struggling Celtics. We sent them to 500 at the time. And Greggy, I'm going to kick it to you first again, because I know you went to Boston College. You still got roots in the Boston area. As I age each year, I think I blindly let out kind of one thing about Boston hate that I normally try to wrap up. I was fist pumping and jumping around, Greggy. Talk to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. I really just like to talk trash to my Celtics friends. You know, before the game, I texted all of them and told them the Knicks were going to win. Naturally, so that's just what I do, no matter the situation.
Do that every game, Greg.
Yeah. Oh, good idea. But anyways, you know, the Knicks came out and they just started balling. You know, Trey Burke was balling all game, knocking down everything. And Knicks were hitting shots. They're up 16 at halftime. And the other thing is that the Celtics just looked like they were in shambles, you know. Cantor was absolutely dominating in the first quarter, just all over the place, pounding the glass, doing what you like Cantor to do. But, you know, Celtics are awful. Knicks are good, you know. That's all there really is to it.
Yeah, little hot take is, you know, the Celtics, I don't want to say they're in trouble right now, but they have a lot to figure out. Woogie Woogislawski. Frank plays some good defense. Trey Burke's the story. 29, 11, and 6. I should say, hey, Vonleh and Cantor both have double-doubles. Timmy kind of did his thing. What jumps out to you from this box score or this game in general?
I would say, we knew Trey Burke could score, could get buckets. The 11 assists are what I was looking at. We've been critical of this Knicks team recently just because they're statistically the worst passing team in the league. It's worth criticizing, but they haven't had one guy who has been able to really make plays for them consistently. I mean, Trey Burke's 11 assists, I think it's a bit of an outlier for this season, but it shows that he can do that. He was kind of the guy I was looking to at the beginning of the season to be that primary facilitator, knowing that that's not really Frank's strength yet. Tim Hardaway Jr. is always going to be a shoot-first guy. So Trey Burke hopefully could get that going in his game a little bit. Another thing I want to point out is Noah Vonleh hit 2 of 2 from 3, and that was a trend that we saw get going this week that I loved to see. Vonleh stepping out, stretching the defense, as well as just being an absolute bruiser inside. He had at least 3 straight double-doubles this week. But, mixing it up inside and outside from Vonleh.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 50% from 3 in this game, and you start pulling your collar a little bit like, okay, so maybe this wasn't a game the Knicks win normally. But, Tom, I loved what you just said, and you said it in last week's podcast with Kenny, that the Knicks need playmakers, not necessarily scorers, because they were doing all this ISO ball and just trying to get their shot when they get the rock. Trey Burke being able to create, dish, shoot his shot, I mean, that's huge and opens up so many more things in this Knicks offense. And I think it shows when I'm looking at the box score now. I see Trier goes 3 of 4. Mitchell Robinson goes 4 of 4. Knox goes 3 of 5. So our young guys have these efficient kind of shooting nights off the bench, and I think the passing is a big part of that.
Absolutely. There just aren't a lot of guys on the roster who look to to set their teammates up. I mean, Trier, he has shown some of the ability to do it. I mean, he's still so young, so I'm not going to like say he can't do it. But I mean, there's no doubt he's a score first guy. Hardaway Jr. I mentioned, but Emmanuel Mudiay is another guy who I'm looking out for to be a playmaker. His assist numbers have been modest all season, but it's not even necessarily about getting the assists. It's about just setting other guys up for opportunities to score. Whether or not they make it, that's another thing. But just assist opportunities is another area where the Knicks are lacking compared to the rest of the league.
Yeah, and people say that Mudiay is the best passer on the team, and he's been getting some serious burn. He's been the closer for the last couple games, so we'll see a lot of him going forward.
Yeah, the Celtics was really his only poor performance of the week. But it was funny, a couple weeks ago we were talking about how Fizdale was, I don't want to say hyping up Mudiay, but he was. He was talking about how good this guy looked in practice and that he's the team's best point guard. And he brings that into the Pelicans game. Emmanuel Mudiay goes 10 of 20 from the field, 6 of 7 from the free throw line, 1 of 6 from 3. 7 boards, 2 assists, 27 points. If I told you Manny Money was going to give us that this year, I would have hammered the under. But the Knicks revenge. Greg must have texted his Pelican fans before the game. Mudiay with the big night, and Trier puts up a 25 spot. And this is another box score, so I'm going through this, and I say, okay, we shot 50% from 3 against the Celtics. That kind of is what it is. Besides Manny's night, I mean, this box score kind of looks like what you'd think it was. Anthony Davis had a big game. Mirotic kind of did his thing. Drew Holiday, the Knicks just won at home.
Yeah, and the one big thing about the Pelicans win is that Tim Hardaway Jr. was 2 for 15 for 7 points. And generally throughout the season, when Tim Hardaway Jr. is not going for 30, the Knicks just have absolutely no chance of winning games. And they were able to pull this one out. So that's impressive. Again, like you said, 27 from Mudiay, 25 from Trier. They led the way. Obviously, Anthony Davis just dominates the Knicks every single time that they play. It's actually pretty amazing, to be honest.
Can we start the Anthony Davis to New York rumors yet, Tom?
I mean, he clearly likes playing in Madison Square Garden, so maybe there's some angle there. But yeah, the Knicks don't really have the personnel to slow him down at all. Like Cantor's not going to do it. Vonleh, you'd like to think, but even he's just not tall enough.
And Mitchell Robinson fouled out in 9 minutes. That was impressive.
That's pretty wild.
Anything. Also, there's a flagrant foul called on Robinson. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Mirotic shot a 3 and Robinson tried to close out, and Mirotic kind of landed on his foot like the Zaza.
That's right.
They gave him a flagrant foul.
Yeah, the refs have really been trying to cut down on that sort of thing. I guess it wasn't a great look because it was the second time Robinson had done that in like almost 2 consecutive plays. Anthony Davis had to go to the locker room because he claimed he'd landed on Mitchell Robinson's foot, but on the replay, it just looked like it was close, and then Anthony Davis kind of like tripped over himself a little bit. But either way, the refs were really looking out for it, and I think that's what led to the flagrant.
Yeah, and I don't get that. I was gonna say I get that, but I don't. Come on, a flagrant foul. You know, when you fucking hit someone. I'm sorry, when you hit someone really hard, that's a flagrant foul. This guy was just terrible at closing out, and he got a flagrant foul for it. The way that you know that it wasn't a flagrant foul is that Mirotic made the 3-pointer. You can't get a flagrant and one. In my opinion.
I've made some flagrant and ones in my day, Greg, on and off the court. But the Mitchell Robinson stat is hilarious. And Tom, we gave your boy love before, but Noah Vonleh, man, 14 and 11, 4 of 7 from 3. What?
And you know what else I love? There's the 5 assists. He led the team in assists in this game, which is just awesome. If you're not going to get your playmaking from your backcourt, you might as well get it from your stretch power forward / center. He was really good in this one. He was a team high plus 18 in his minutes, which is pretty incredible. But yeah, it's really hard to undersell how good Mudiay was. I want to go back to him and Trier a little bit, just because. So Mudiay, you mentioned, was 1 of 6 from 3. That means if I'm doing my math right, he was 9 of 14 from inside the arc. And I wrote a piece for the B-Ball Index this past week, really highlighting Moutier's improved touch around the basket and how he's been using his body, his size, to exploit mismatches against smaller guards and to just get to the rim with more frequency and better efficiency. Just looking year over year, like Moutier is shooting much more of a higher percentage of his shots from layups, and he's shooting a much higher percentage on those layups, which is always a nice combination to see. And if he can maintain this kind of efficiency around the basket, like that's how he was projected to be a good player in the first place. The reason he's kind of been viewed as a bust is because he's been so bad around the rim, and he's really turned that around this season.
And Tom, for me, that's one of those, people love diving into advanced stats, and then you have Charles Barkley say something and just shoot it down. This is where the eye test fully matches that. If you've been watching these games, Moutier is in attack mode and getting to the rim. And we saw it tonight against the Grizzlies too, which ended up leading to a hilarious block party for the final 8 minutes, which we'll talk about that a little bit. But Moutier follows it up again. I mean, he goes 5 for 12, 17 points, 4 assists. And I know I left the Pelicans game there quickly, Tom, and I'll let you continue on, Manny. He had 4 steals in that Pelicans game.
Yeah, he's I've been a little critical of his defense, especially lately. There's been some lack of effort plays, but if you're getting steals and turning that into offense, then it's tough to complain too much. Flat out, he was awesome in that Pelicans game. And just one last note, like Trier was also, I know you mentioned the 25 points. He was crazy efficient, 9 of 12 from the field, hit all 3 of his threes. He grabbed 8 boards and also had 4 assists. And I highlighted those assists in one of my latest articles too, just because he showed his ability to hit guys in a variety of different ways. He would do it out of the drive. He did one where he threw like a behind the back pass out to Vonleh, I think it was, for a 3. He did a little wrap. He drove and did a wraparound pass to Cantor for an easy 2. And then he threw a lob. He's been connecting with Mitchell Robinson a decent amount. He threw a really nice lob off a high pick and roll to a diving Mitchell Robinson who just threw down the alley-oop. And so, yeah, Trier's showing that he has the ability to make these passes. They're actually really difficult passes. He makes them look so easy. So I just think that projects so well for his future.
Yeah, and building on that, just his finishing tonight, and he looks like a pro. He just looks like a pro. He finished that Pels game 25, 4, and 8. Greggy, let's close out the week again. This 3-1 Knicks week that I like to say the term mind-boggling because it's silly, to be honest. But we've got another fun box score here. Cantor with 21 and 26, yawn, normal day at the office. I said Moutier puts on his show. Trey Burke, yikes shooting, but finishes kind of with an okay stat line. And Greggy, the block party that happened, I know you like to look for some good humor when you're watching sports, and this was insane for a little bit.
It was terrible. In that fourth quarter, they just kept going at the rim and just getting swatted by Jaren Jackson. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 7 blocks, and Marc Gasol had 5. That's the Knicks as a team had 5. So.
Yeah, I looked it up on Basketball Reference to see if this had ever happened before because it just felt unprecedented when I was watching it. And it was by far the highest block percentage in a single game this season. And it was actually top 10. It was tied for 10th in the 3-point era. So that was since 1983. It was the 10th highest block percentage in a game. So they still got the win. So who cares?
Yeah, 19 blocks for the Grizzlies. 5 for the Knicks.
They blocked 27.5% of the Knicks shots, more than a quarter of the Knicks field goal attempts.
Yeah, I think there was 3 or 4 possessions in a row where I think 5 of the blocks happened in that fourth quarter when you were the Knicks were up by 4 or something, and then they just kept getting blocked, and you were no, this is going terribly. We're going to lose. And then eventually they fell behind 93-92. Then they went on a 7-0 run. And, you were like, wow, I didn't know the Knicks could close like this, but this was impressive. The Grizzlies were the 1 seed in the East earlier this week. Or the West. Sorry.
Did we beat 2 1 seeds in the West this week?
No, we lost to the Blazers.
Oh, that's right. My bad. My biscuit. And I think what I'm going to talk about, because we haven't mentioned him yet, even though he's had a solid week, Enes Kanter, man, 21 and 26. I talk about rebound chasing and all that, and obviously the defense, but he kept his team alive for a while in this game. He was just a force. Kanter looked good, and Hardaway ends up with kind of a Hardaway stat line at the end. And then that thing we circled earlier, Hazonia, 21 minutes, 4 points. Damian Dotson, another DMP. This is a big topic, and this is going to spin into more. But I don't know. Do either of you guys have any closing thoughts on this game?
I mean, Kanter's just he was really a monster. I was seeing some tweets about how this is what Kanter would look like if he played in the 80s or the 90s when opponents really played like the Grizzlies do. And it makes sense, man. The Grizzlies were not putting him in a lot of spread pick and rolls. It didn't look like he wasn't. He was switched a few times on to Conley, but it just wasn't so detrimental this time around. And Kanter was extremely effective. There's no doubt about it. When he was off the court, it was a problem. They had a hard time grabbing rebounds. Gasol was just a load, and Kanter was sort of the galvanizing force, to use a Walt Frazier word there.
Walt. Yeah, Kanter has a day. Trey Burke gets the run, 3 of 15. Nick shot 37.4% from the field.
Huh.
And they win this game, 103-98 at Memphis.
It's because they kept shooting it into the Grizzlies' hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 14 offensive rebounds to 6. The Knicks win there. Free throw line, 32 free throw attempts to 19. That's big. And the Grizzlies only shot 11 for 19, and the Knicks shot 27 for 32. So that's plus 16 at the free throw line right there. In a game they win by 5 points. So there's the story. End of podcast.
End of podcast. And I mean, again, a wild week in Knicksland. They beat 3 current playoff teams. I want to jump into our topics now, and if you were listening closely, folks, you'd kind of know where we're going. I want to start with the general one, and I mean, if we want to deep dive, we can. If we don't, we don't have to. Tom, I know you and I have been on the same wavelength on this a little bit, that winning's okay. We want to get free agents. We want these young guys to know what winning looks like. I don't know, when everyone was happy when you beat the Celtics, because you beat the Celtics and you end your losing streak. Then everyone kind of raised an eyebrow at that Pelicans game, and they're like, okay, is this going to be one of those games we regret at the end of the year? And now we're hot.
I mean, look, as long as you're giving minutes to the young guys and seeing growth and development, then I am 100% okay with winning. I think the issue comes when you see guys just not making progress, like our people who we know are a part of our future. If they're not progressing or just not having the opportunity to, that's where fans get frustrated. But I'm honestly never going to get upset about winning games, only because when you look in the draft, it can be such a crapshoot. Having a high draft pick in no way guarantees you getting the better player. We've seen this time and again. Donovan Mitchell was the 11th overall pick last year, and would have been rookie of the year had it not been for Ben Simmons. Outside of the 1 overall pick, which is almost always a good one, though you look at guys like Anthony Bennett, Markelle Fultz, nothing's a sure thing. So it has more to do with scouting and player development than necessarily where your pick is. I don't worry about the winning. I'm all on board with winning as many games as possible. That is why you play the sport.
You play to win the game, Tom. Exactly. It's like you just said. But, I don't think Fizdale has said he likes to play the young guys. It's about that. But when it comes choosing between winning and playing the young guys, I think the coach is going to choose winning every time because that's his job, is to win. 3 years from now, we're going to look at his record and be like, wow, he was really bad that year. We're not going to say, oh, wow, he played the young guys that year. Good job. So, just to look into the future, you're not gonna look back and criticize him for that. You're gonna look at him based on his record.
Well, you guys have brought it up with the young guys because let's look at tonight's box score. I mean, Cantor plays 41 minutes, Hardaway plays 38. Then you start looking down. Kevin Knox only plays 7 minutes. He goes 0 for 3 from the field. Frank gets 13 minutes. Mitchell Robinson gets 13 minutes. Damian Dotson with the DNP. I can run back the Damian Dotson DNP all week against the Pelicans. Knox plays 9 minutes, Mitchell Robinson 9 minutes, Frank 14. So I guess let's spin this conversation back. We've won these 3 games, but I mean, if you're Kevin Knox right now, what are you thinking? If you're Damian Dotson, what the hell are you thinking? A couple weeks ago, we had him as our second most entrenched starter. I'll eat crow on that. Provide the crow, Greg.
Yeah, I guess they're just winning. I don't know. I can't justify Dotson not playing, especially when we're watching Hazonia try it out there and start. I think the fact that they just keep winning and while Hazonia's starting is one of life's just great coincidences. It's not him doing stuff. So the 4 games he scored 2 points in 17 minutes, 3 points in 13 minutes. 2 points in 19 minutes, and 4 points in 21 minutes. And all this while shooting 5 for 21 from the field. And they won 3 of 4 games. I can
assure you that the winning has had nothing to do with what Zonia has been doing. Yeah, that's for sure. As far as the young guys, like I've got the team stats from the last 4 games. So Kevin Knox has averaged about 14 minutes per game. That is low, but you have to remember he missed a little time with that ankle injury. He just hasn't looked that great, like athletically out there. I mean, I don't know if it's more so his aggressiveness. I know Fizdale had talked about him and his effort levels a little bit. Being inconsistent and how he needs to be more of a competitor out there. Maybe it just has to do with Knox earning his time. Like he definitely hasn't been that good, and he just hasn't looked like he's been busting his ass out there every play. You know what I mean? Like that's what you want to see out of your rookies is just extreme effort and energy. At least we're getting that out of Mitchell Robinson, who also is only averaging about 14 minutes per game, but for a different reason. It's because he's trying so hard that he fouls out and gets into foul trouble. But outside of those 2 guys, like I'm not too worried about the play. And then obviously Dotson, but outside of those 3 guys, like Ntilikina is getting some shine. He averaged about 21 minutes per game this past week. He had some games where he was more than that, but again, he hasn't been that strong. So like I understand with Fizdale, like wanting to give guys minutes who earn them, who warrant those minutes. And for this specific game against Memphis, it was also a revenge game for him going back to the team that fired him a year ago. So I could see why he was even more highly motivated to win this one.
Yeah, and I have to represent Kenny right now because I know he'd be screaming about Frank's defense. Frank did play some really strong defense in a lot of these games. And I guess I don't know. I guess maybe this is a micro versus macro, but I see Kevin Knox with 26 minutes. He goes 3 of 5 from the field, 11 points, 9 rebounds against the Celtics. And that next night against the Pelicans, he only gets the 9 minutes and he only gets 7. And again, maybe this is zoomed in too far, but I don't know. That's when I start worrying about a young guy's psyche. But hey, if you're winning keeps everyone happy normally. The Dotson thing is bizarre. I mean, do we want to dive more into this? Because Tom, I think you mentioned something there about Knox's hustle and effort levels. And I think I keep going back to a quote we heard earlier in the year from Fizdale about these kind of 5-game stretches and trying things. I mean, Damian Dotson right now, he's going 4 DNP did not play, coach's decision. And like we saw this with Trey Burke. Trey Burke had 3 out of 4 games. He didn't play. We saw right now we're seeing it with Dame Dot. I looked at Hazonia. He had two consecutive DNP. So do we think this is what we're seeing in practice? Do we think this is the coaching staff still trying new things? Or do we think flip a coin and whoever's balling gets it? I don't know.
It's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, there's only so many minutes to go around. So, I think that unless it's Hazonia, the one sitting out, I think we'd be complaining about somebody not getting minutes. When Trey Burke wasn't playing, it was like, where's Trey Burke? If Frank wasn't playing, we'd be like, where's Frank? Moutier's balling right now. We can't sit him. So it's tough. So I guess he's just finding himself in a tough spot after, I don't know, but he did really well as the starter. So it is very questionable why he started sitting. But somebody's got to do it. And I guess for whatever reason, it's not Hazonia. I guess it's Dotson.
And I think soon it's going to be Hazonia. Like Hazonia averaged about 18 minutes per game over these past 4 games during Dotson's DNPs. And I'm just pretty confident that those 18 minutes are going to go to Dotson soon. Like maybe as soon as the Knicks lose their next game, he's gonna be like, okay, fine. It wasn't Hazonia starting, leading to us winning every game. But so far, like since Hazonia's been in the starting lineup, the Knicks have won every time. So he just doesn't want to tinker there. Even though I think tinkering is probably what's best in the long run, just considering Hazonia's ineptitude on both ends of the court. So I'd say as a prediction, Dotson's going to be getting Hazonia's minutes very soon.
You know what could happen is Courtney Lee could come back and take those minutes because Courtney Lee's going to be playing. He's not going to be the one sitting on the bench for this team, especially since even if you want to trade him, you have to play him, showcase him a little bit. But he said he's getting better. His shot feels good, but he's still a little injured. They said he's missed more games with this injury than he has with all injuries combined for the rest of his career. So he's a durable guy. He'll be back.
The whole Courtney Lee thing is pretty wild, especially when you drop a stat like that, Greggy. And it's funny. I wrote down a couple topics, and we've been segueing pretty well. I think I wanted to give more credit because we gave credit to Vonleh, we gave some credit to Cantor and Mitchell Robinson, and it's almost like those guys, the Knicks bigs, they kind of have their rotation figured out. If we need more defense, we're going to play Mitchell Robinson more. If Cantor goes out and does his thing, let him go. Vonleh has become this jack of all trades. In the backcourt is where all the questions start, and it's mostly the point guard. And Tom, I'm going to throw the lob pass to you, and I don't even know where it lands, but Frank, Trey, Moutier, Ron Baker. I mean, what do you have these guys doing? What do you want to see? Do you think it's different matchups on a nightly basis? What do you want to see this? I was going to say 3-headed monster. I think it's a 3-headed baby monster right now. But what do you think this should turn into?
Well, I noticed you said Ron Baker there, but that was just that was part of the humorous.
Edit that in post.
I guess what I'm looking to see is, first of all, as a Knicks fan, like just rooting for the future of this franchise, like Frank is the one whose development I most want to see. I understand Moutier is only 22. It just seems like Frank has so much potential as a 3-and-D type of guy. I'm thinking that Frank probably will just to increase his minutes will have to move off ball though and play like a 2 or a 3, even a 3 type of player. Just because Trey Burke and Emmanuel Moutier and even Trier as a primary ball handler, they like having Trier run the offense over Frank most times. So I think I want to see Frank getting upwards of 25 to 30 minutes a game, but there's no way that he could fit in as the primary ball handler for even half that time. So it's such a juggling act, and I don't envy Fizdale right now with all these backcourt guys.
Yeah, like Jake mentioned, there's about 3 guys in the front court, and then everybody else is the backcourt. So it's tough to juggle those minutes with 12 guys trying to get minutes at guard.
And if Frank is your primary ball handler, it doesn't even really look like you're trying to win, because it's not his strong suit yet. You want to, like, maybe as a second unit primary facilitator, he could earn those minutes, but it's just there are other guys who are better at initiating the offense than Frank, and so I think Fizdale's going to keep playing those guys in those roles.
Yeah, and it's early in the season, so the Knicks can. I think the Knicks are probably planning on not being very good for a while, and then they'd be out of the playoff hunt with, I don't know, maybe 20 games left, and then you have 20 games to just do whatever you want.
Yeah, Tom, I don't know how this would even be researched, but if Trier, Burke, or Moutier are coming up the court, you kind of have to keep your body on them. I mean, Trier or Burke will pull up on you at any instant. If you let Manny get a head full of steam going right now, he's a legit threat. What he was doing tonight in the last couple games. I guess if Frank's bringing the ball up the court, you can really set in your defense. He doesn't threaten you at all at this point.
Yeah, he's such an up and down type of player. Like, he will come off screens and hit mid-range jumpers sometimes. Other times he'll just not even look for, literally not even look at the rim for his shot. So it's tough to know what Frank you're going to get day to day.
Day-to-day Frank. I don't know. I feel like we still haven't hashed out enough. Tom, you mentioned, Moutier's youth. He's a guy that was, you and me kind of started laughing at his stats to start this season, because some of your advanced stats, the A-, B+ type ratings, he ranked out as a D or an F in so many categories. Now we hear Fizdale talking about him confidently, and we're seeing what he's doing. And something we haven't mentioned yet, the dunk to close the game tonight. Who is that man?
Good dunk.
He was big mad. That's my new phrase I'm trying to work in. I don't know. Greggy, you want Moutier a little bit?
If he's dunking like that, he could play for me all day. never sub him out.
48 minutes of Manny. Tom Bone? I mean, that dunk was incredible. I think someone tweeted from our Talking Knicks account that the John Wall comparison, that they saw some hints of John Wall there. I didn't know that Moutier even had that kind of athleticism and that kind of burst. Like, he's always struck me as more of like a big body. Sure, he's quick for his size, but not like quick. But I mean, he looked good on that play. I'll tell you what. And you know what else has really impressed me? Like I mentioned his finishing earlier, his 3-point shooting. I think his entire career he's been just an abysmal 3-point shooter. And this year he's I want to say he's in the mid-30s, like maybe even creeping up to like 36% on the season. I don't have the number in front of me, just based on what I've seen. Like, he's someone you have to guard behind the arc, and in previous years it hasn't been like that at all. So I like a few things about Moutier's game, and probably what I like most right now is that he is the one point guard who, when he drives, he has a nice balance of looking for his own shot and looking for others. He actually passes at the highest percentage out of his drives versus anyone else on the team. So he just has a nice mix of looking for others and going for his own shot.
Yeah, Tom, I got bad news for you. He's shooting 31% from 3. But he went 2 for 4 tonight, so it's probably up to like 32.
Which, hey, in comparison to his 19.6% he shot with the Knicks last year, we're still looking good. And it is crazy, Tom. You mentioned a stat earlier, but I mean, this guy's a career 38% from the field, and now he's shooting 50%. He's shooting 58% on his twos, and it's I'm not going to start patting people on the back too much, but if this guy just needed a confidence boost and a slap on the tush, well, hey.
Fizdale's the right guy. I mean, he's a real rah-rah type coach, and I think he gives a lot of tush slaps.
All right.
Enough Dwight Howard talk. Before we go to the upcoming schedule, I don't know, anything you guys want to close upon? I know we touched upon Trier a little bit. I mean, kind of shocking that a week like this, we barely mention him, or Vonleh or anyone jump out.
I want to talk about the Eastern Conference standings.
Okay.
The Knicks are 7-14. The 8th seed is 9-10.
Oh boy!
So the Knicks are 2 games back, or 3 games back. 2 in the win column, though. So
I said I wasn't going to do that this year, Greg.
Hey, let's do it. The 8th seed is under 500. The Knicks can be under 500. We can pull that off. Plus, the Magic are 10-10 at the 6th seed. We're going to be the 6th seed, I guess. Now that I look at the standings closely.
I'm having flashbacks to last December.
I mean, the Knicks just won 3 in a row against 3 good teams. So you have to think about it. I mean, they're thinking it in the locker room. They're not thinking, "Oh, we're going to lose."
They're saying it. I don't know if they're thinking it. Is that too harsh? Tombo, upcoming schedule: at Detroit, at Philly, at home versus the Bucks. Another couple teams that have been playing strong basketball and playoff contenders. What's the big thing? I mean, is it the thing we circled earlier? Is it looking for Damian Dotson? Do we want to keep the winning going?
I think we want to keep the winning going.
Yeah, baby.
I don't think it's going to happen. I want it to. I want it to happen. So the Pistons have been pretty solid. They're 10-7. They're at the 4 spot in the East. I think Blake Griffin's been some people have been trying to get him into the MVP conversation. So I'll be interested to see how the Knicks front court tries to defend him and Drummond. That's a pretty tough duo. So Cantor will have his hands full with somebody.
And the Knicks are susceptible to getting out rebounded on the offensive glass in particular. And Drummond, I think, led the league by a lot.
Yeah, I mentioned that a little earlier in the pod that the Knicks coming into the week or even midway through the week, they ranked 27th in the league in second chance points allowed. And in their previous 10 games or so, they've ranked in the 29th in the league. So they've definitely had a hard time, like Greg said, boxing out. The stats back that up. And it's funny that NBA.com actually tracks box outs, and they're 29th in the league in box outs. So that kind of translates directly to giving up offensive rebounds. So yeah, Pistons is a tough matchup. Philly, I mean, Embiid is another just beast on the board. So I could see this going 0-3 this week. I think I was a little more optimistic last week, but I could see losses coming at Detroit, at Philly, and then at home against this Bucks team. It's a tough week coming up.
0-3, Tom.
You're talking about a team that just went 3-0.
Get him, Greg.
I mean, the Knicks always play the Bucks pretty well. I know this is a different Bucks teams than we've seen in years past, but even this year they played them fairly well, even while Chris Middleton made every single shot that he took against them. So we'll beat the Bucks probably. Sixers, they just lost to the Cavaliers at home. So either they're going to be mad or they're not that good. So
will they be big mad, Jake?
Oh, they'll be big mad. I saw Scott Van Pelt use that this week, so I finally cracked and I'm giving it a chance. And it's working, baby. Tom, I think you hit the nail on the coffin. Detroit with Drummond and Blake. Philly with Embiid. 2 road games with, we mentioned our three-man bigs rotation. If Mitchell Robinson has one of his 9-minute 6 foul nights, that game could go pretty south pretty quick if Cantor has to guard those guys for an extended period of time. I don't know, man. I don't want to force it upon you guys anymore, and you guys brought it, but Damian Dotson has to get run. He has to. Unless there's a hidden injury or something we don't know about. I mean, there's no reason that our second round pick from last year that's shown a lot of promise and is one of our better two-way players shouldn't be getting any minutes.
Well, and the other thing with Dotson is, like, we make the comparison to Trey Burke getting those DNP CDs earlier in the season, but like Burke was struggling on the offensive end. And when he's struggling on offense, he really doesn't bring anything defensively. So even if Dotson is having a hard time with his shot, which he was struggling a little bit with his offense, but he still brings so much more to the table, like we said, defensively. And he's also one of the best rebounding players for his position in the entire league. So, like, the Knicks desperately miss his defensive rebounding because that's just something that Frank doesn't do. Knox hasn't done it all. And, Dotson's just a huge component of their defensive equation.
Here's a question for you guys. What's better, 5 minutes or no minutes? Because 5 minutes, you don't really get any flow or anything. And, you don't really get a feel. So what do you think about that?
Well, in 5 minutes also hurts your per game averages, whereas these DNPs don't hurt your per game averages. So statistically, it makes them look better, I guess. But at this point, I think any time is a step in the right direction.
Greg, I'm kind of with you. If he's going to go out there, I give him 10 minutes or so, and I guess that's what I'm saying with the young guys too. I don't know. I guess my closing thought, which is actually another thought from Tom and Ken last week, was the fact that Damian Dotson, not only you mentioned his rebounding, but he plays the way you want our guys to play on offense. He's cutting, he's coming around screens, he's looking for open threes, he's trying to get to the right space, and that's when this Knicks team was playing ugly basketball. Not enough guys on the court were doing that. He was drawing some Courtney Lee comparisons, and I think those are rightfully so.
More Dotson. I think I agree.
I'm big mad about Dotson.
Another thing about the Hazonia minutes is those could be going to Knox, because Hazonia is a bigger guy and Knox is a bigger guy. So maybe Knox getting some minutes at the 4. I know he's played some, but he could be seeing more in the future.
With the big men coming this week, that's also definitely something to watch.
And Dotson's also 6'6", but I don't know if he's playing the 4. But
no,
why not? Let him play center. I don't care. Just get him in there.
Hot takes at the end from Greggy P. Any closing thoughts? Should we wrap it up? Thank our friends.
I'm just getting started.
Buckle up. This was hour 1 of 4 of Talking Knicks. Tom, you got to close?
We pretty much hit it all, I think. I'm good.
Good. Well, thank you, fellas, Tom and Greg. You guys were awesome per usual. If you've been listening, thank you so much. If you could please leave a 5-star review, we'd appreciate that. And yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting week to watch as we wonder if this Knicks team can keep winning or if the young guys get to play more or, find me some Damian Dotson. All right, enough about that. Thank you guys so much for listening. Greg, it looks like you got something on your tongue.
We want to pump up Tom. Tom's going to be a guest doing a guest spot on another pod.
Tom.
This is true. I will be joining Knicks Film School's podcast in a couple weeks to hop on and discuss all things Knicks. Jake, you look like I've just told you found out I was cheating on you or something.
I did, Tom. Wow. Well, this wraps up this week's episode of Nick's Film School. Thank you guys for tuning in. No, man, that's going to be awesome. Like you mentioned, they've had some big hosts recently. So now you're in their ilk, Tom. Am I using that right?
Yeah, ilk is a good word to use there, but I don't know that I'd say I'm in it. Yeah, no, they've had some great guests there, so I'm super pumped to be joining their pod here, and we'll definitely be plugging that when it gets a little closer. But in the meantime, you guys could read my articles at the B-Ball Index. I've been writing a bunch of things about the Knickerbockers, so yeah, that's enough plugging from me.
No, that was great. I like that. And yeah, if you see me retweet one of those, just read the article because Tom's good. So that was it for us talking Knicks. Let's go Knicks. Let's win a couple. If we start losing again, okay, we're back in the picks game. But for Greggy, Tom, and myself, let's go Knicks.
See you guys in the playoffs.